On Mr. Brown for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the hearing. Let me just start by saying that veterans and the veterans community are overwhelmingly characterized as honorable men and women who courageously served our country, and rightfully so. Many continue to serve our country and communities throughout our nation after taking off their military uniform. But the post-service experience of our individual veterans is neither identical nor successful among all veterans. Most veterans who leave military service are successful in many ways. Some leave military service and encounter setbacks after setbacks for a variety of reasons. This isn't my opinion, but rather evidenced by the fact, for example, that veterans experience higher rates of homelessness and suicide compared to the general population. And this committee, on a bipartisan basis, has sought to address both homelessness and suicide among veterans. But likewise, our veterans are targeted at higher rates by extremist groups for recruitment into these violent organizations. This, Mr. Chairman, is evidenced, as mentioned by many of our presenters today, by the high rate of participation by veterans in the January 6th insurrection on the Capitol. Even surveys conducted by the Military Times, reports published by the DOD, and even the Army Criminal Investigation Division have all documented the rising levels of recruitment and participation of military members in extremist groups. So it's my hope that this committee, on a bipartisan basis, will likewise care for our veterans and ensure our domestic security by protecting our veterans from being targeted by these violent extremist groups, whoever they are. First question, Dr. Miller, Idris, in your view, and I believe this is kind of a follow-up to Representative Lamb's question, when are service members, transitioning service members, and our veterans most vulnerable to recruitment by extremist organizations?
Well, thank you for the question, Representative Brown. We part of the lack of data that we were just hearing about is that we don't really know precisely when they are most vulnerable. We do know that one of the moments of vulnerability is after separation from the military, particularly for a small minority of service members and veterans who may lack a sense of belonging or have lost their sense of purpose that was so appealing to them before. And then there's these persuasive tactics from extremist groups seeking to manipulate them and recruit them in because they're so attractive based on their prior history. So there's no particular time point that we know of because of the lack of studies and data that I hope will be remedied eventually. But certainly after the time of separation, if there's not a successful transition into finding a better sense of purpose again and meaning and the kind of enacting of their sense of purpose, that is a time when they are particularly vulnerable.
Thank you. And that's why I offered an amendment to the fiscal year 22 NDAA that would address extremism, not only in the armed forces, but also to strengthen the transition assistance program to defend against recruitment by extremist groups. I'd like to ask Mr. Butler and Colonel Plensler, you mentioned both, actually all of our presenters have mentioned this program, TAPS, in your testimony. How else can the transition assistance program be strengthened to help transitioning service members be prepared against the threat of extremist groups, recruitment by those groups?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, I think the more that we can add to the TAPS program to make it more effective in providing transitioning service members with information and guidance on jobs, education, housing, healthcare, all of these issues that tend to build and become much larger issues down the line, the more we can set them up for a path to success right out of the gate, I think the better off we're going to be in combating some of these other issues, such as invitations to extremism, as well as mental health problems down the line. I think the TAP program is one of those areas where we have to continue to iterate and continue to improve.
Colonel Plensler?
I would totally agree. I think working to the left of this issue in a preventative measure is the best way to go. And I think if we can stop people from even considering joining these groups, that's where we can apply the greatest pressure, because once somebody joins and their values are set, it's really difficult to recruit them away. And it usually takes somebody who's left one of those organizations to go back and help those veterans navigate their way out and become extracted from it. So yeah, definitely working on the left of the recruitment side of it, and but letting veterans know, hey, they're out there. They could try to recruit you, and this is what to do if you're approached. Report it to the FBI. I think are some important messages that all service members need to know.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.